Ingrid Lyne was excited about a date. She had been seeing a man for about a month, and tonight he was taking her to watch a Seattle Mariners baseball game. But horribly for Ingrid, her date's kind and gentle personality later melted away to reveal a fiendish monster capable of killing in cold blood. In this story, you'll hear about a dedicated nurse and mother of 3 that had her life taken during a date with a man that she met online. Welcome to 10-Minute Murder, brief and bingeable true crime. I'm Joe, the host, and my headphones are falling off. I've rescued them. Okay. I really appreciate you being a part of it today, and I don't know about you, but this week has been not very fergalicious for me. Nothing bad has really happened, but I've been busier than normal, and this one place I like to get Thai coconut curry started doing it a little different. I'm not thrilled about that. I'm going to give it a chance. Going to give it a fair chance. Keep eating it for a while. But if you've listened for very long to this podcast, you might remember the Coke Zero debacle of 2021. They changed the cans from black to red, and now here I am, drinking a Diet Pepsi. Change it back, Coke Zero. Hey, before we get started with the episode today, look at where you're listening right now and hit the button that subscribes you to this podcast. When you become a subscriber to 10-Minute Murder, you'll get the episodes as soon as they are released. You won't have to search for them anywhere. Your jeans are going to fit better, and that thing that you're hoping for will finally happen. Also, connect with the podcast on social media. In the episode notes, you'll find a link to follow, as well as a link to the merch store if you're interested in 10-Minute Murder shirts, stickers, and that sort of thing. Okay, now let's get to the story. It was the evening of April 8th, 2016, and Ingrid Lyne, a 40-year-old nurse in the Swedish Medical Center in Seattle, was getting ready for a date. She and her ex-husband Philip divorced 2 years prior, but obviously they stayed in touch because they shared the custody of their 3 daughters, 10-year-old Noelle, 8-year-old Brooke, and 6-year-old Reese. Ingrid had been active on the online dating platforms since the divorce, and it was through one of these that she met the man that she was currently dating, 37-year-old John Robert Charlton. They'd been seeing each other for about a month and had big plans to go to the Seattle Mariners game that evening. What Ingrid didn't know was that Charlton had a pretty troubled past. His rap sheet included an arrest for burglary, as well as convictions for aggravated robbery, felony theft, grand theft auto, 4th-degree assault, and 3rd-degree larceny. Back in 2006, his own parents sought a protection order against him, claiming that he's a violent person and his drunken outbursts led them to fearing for their own lives. According to court records, Charlton's parents believed that he used crack cocaine. These documents also stated that he, quote, has been known to hold grudges for several years and exposes frustrations when under the influence of alcohol or drugs. These frustrations he displays can be very intimidating and cause fear of violence, end quote. But for some weird reason, John Charlton neglected to add kleptomaniac, violent abuser, and crackhead to his hobby section on the various online dating platforms. Strange. Not much is known about how the couple's date went, but the following day, Ingrid failed to show up to the hospital, which set off alarm bells with her coworkers. They knew that she had gone out with John Charlton the night before, and so they tried calling him to ask where she was. When he wouldn't answer his phone, they tried his sister's phone too, but no answer. And how did Ingrid's coworkers have John and his sister's phone numbers to call? I'm telling you, women are like freelance FBI agents. With enough coffee, they can find out practically anything. Meanwhile, Philip Lyne had arrived at his ex-wife's home in the city of Renton. He was dropping off their daughters, who had spent the night with him, but when they knocked on the door and rang the doorbell, no one answered. After a few minutes of waiting, he decided to call his former mother-in-law, Georgia, who had an extra key, and together they entered the house. The same day, the police received a call from a man named Mike Navasio, who reported finding what he believed were human remains inside his recycling bin. Navasio said, quote, "It was just 3 bags in the bottom of that bin that were incredibly heavy and weren't supposed to be there. I grabbed the first bag and it was almost professionally packed, that it was very eerie, and you could see, as I pulled it out, what it was. the outline of a face, end quote. When investigators arrived, they discovered that he was unfortunately right. Wrapped in plastic bags were a human head, a foot, a lower leg, and an arm with a hand still attached. These parts were immediately identified as belonging to Ingrid Lyne, who had been reported missing earlier that morning. Over the next few days, more of her body parts were discovered. Some were in a cooler that had been dumped on some random street, while others had been taken to a local recycling center. Sadly, though, not all of Ingrid's remains were found. 2 days later, John Robert Charlton was arrested and taken in for questioning. He confirmed that he and Ingrid had gone out on a date the night of April 8th, but he said he had not stayed the night at her place because he knew that her daughters were coming home the following morning. He also claimed that he couldn't remember much from their evening together because he had had too much to drink at the bar that they had gone to after the baseball game. When questioned further, John Charlton said that he recalled Ingrid acting weird during their date. He also told police he was actually homeless, saying that he had slept on a sidewalk in downtown Seattle near the spot where she had dropped him off that night. Yet another important detail that he neglected to add to his dating profile. Chillingly enough, Charlton told the police that he was, quote, not a normal person. After the questioning, they photographed his body, and the police found abrasions on his forehead and left hand, as well as deep scratches on his chest, lips, and chin. That was pretty suspicious, so they questioned one of his ex-girlfriends, whom he had said that he saw after his date. According to her, he told her that he had sustained those injuries during a robbery, meaning he had been robbed, but she noticed that he still had his wallet with him. The autopsy revealed that Ingrid Lyne had been suffocated with a plastic bag before being drowned. When the police searched her home, they found a 15-inch wood saw in the bathroom, which they believe was used to dismember her body. Shortly afterward, her Toyota Highlander was discovered in downtown Seattle, near the area where Charlton claimed to have woken up on the sidewalk the morning after their date. These discoveries, combined with his suspicious injuries, led the police to conclude that he had murdered Ingrid in her home before stealing her car to scatter her dismembered body parts all over Seattle. They charged him with premeditated first-degree murder and theft of a motor vehicle, to which he pleaded not guilty. Because all of the evidence in the case was circumstantial, the defense argued that there was nothing to link John Charlton directly to Ingrid's murder, which meant that there was a possibility that he would get acquitted. However, shortly before his trial was supposed to begin, he changed his plea to guilty on both charges. In a statement to the press, King County Prosecutor Dan Satterberg said, quote, "Our community was shocked by the senseless murder of Ingrid Lyne. We have charged the most serious crimes we could under the law, and now this defendant has pled guilty. We will be recommending the maximum prison sentence." John Robert Charlton was ultimately sentenced to 333 months, or almost 28 years in prison, which was the maximum punishment carried by his charges. However, King County Superior Court Judge Julie Spector, who presided over the case, told him that she would have given him a life sentence if she could, due to the vicious and cruel nature of his crime. If you could find a positive out of all of this, Charlton's guilty plea spared Lynn's family and friends the horror of having to sit through a lengthy trial. But despite this closure, they remain heartbroken that someone they loved was brutally taken away from them. According to the Seattle Times, Lynn's ex-husband Philip said, "Charlton stole his co-parent and sounding board, and his daughter's devoted and compassionate mother. There will be no more motherly advice from Ingrid. No more July 4th holidays in Big Fork, Montana. No more trips to the beach or Thursday night dinners at a steakhouse." And while their 3 beautiful girls are thriving, Philip said that they miss their mother every single day. Unfortunately, Ingrid isn't the first person to fall victim to an online dating murderer, nor will she be the last. In 2018, the year that Charlton was sentenced, a 22-year-old British backpacker named Grace Mullane was strangled to death by a Tinder date. 2 years later, 25-year-old Ashlyn Black was killed by a man that she met on a dating app. Sometimes these dating apps can lead to love and a happily forever after, but other times they can host a cold-blooded killer. That's today's 10-Minute Murder, brief and bingeable true crime. Thanks for listening to the story today, and I hope, for your sake, you take this story today as a little bit of a warning to be careful when it comes to online dating apps. Ask questions. Get nosy. If someone gets mad because you ask if they've ever been arrested before, that's a red flag. You should be able to ask someone if they currently sleep on sidewalks or have ever done crack. And for you, on the other side of that, expect caution from the person you're talking to. Expect someone to have their guard up at least a little bit. The world is a pretty dangerous place for women. And guys, if she seems overly confident and not showing too much concern for her own safety, she carries a gun in her purse and won't hesitate to shoot you. So behave. All right, before this episode ends, be sure that you are fully subscribed to 10 Minute Murder in all the places that you listen. I know I use a couple of different listening apps, plus YouTube, so I go to all of those places and subscribe to the things that I like to listen to. So hopefully you do that with 10 Minute Murder. Also connect with me on social media where I post a variety of things, including visuals that go along with the episodes. Finally, if you have friends and family that you think could be into brief stories about true crime cases like the one today, tell them about 10 Minute Murder. Thanks for listening. Be safe and make good choices.